The massive Zephyrian warship moved through space like a silver blade cutting through darkness. Commander Vexithara stood on the bridge, her purple skin gleaming under the ship's lights. She watched the blue and green planet grow larger on the main screen. Earth looked so small and peaceful from here, spinning slowly like a child's toy. Another easy conquest, she thought to herself. The Zephyrian Empire had taken over 47 star systems in the past century. Earth would be number 48. "Commander, we're getting the first scan results," reported Lieutenant Zachmore from his station, his 3 eyes focused on the glowing displays in front of him. "The planet has about 8 billion inhabitants. They're divided into separate nations that fight each other regularly." Vexthara smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "Perfect. Divided enemies are weak enemies. What about their weapons?" "Primitive nuclear devices, Commander. Chemical rockets that can barely reach their own moon. Some basic satellites in orbit." Zachmore paused, looking confused. "They don't even have a unified planetary government." "This should be simple," the commander nodded. Every conquered world followed the same pattern. First came the detailed scans to find weaknesses, then the show of force to break their spirit. Finally, the occupation and integration into the Empire. The humans would probably surrender within hours of seeing Zephyrian technology. "Begin deep space analysis," Vexithara ordered. "I want to know everything about their defenses, their resources, and their leadership structure." The ship's advanced sensors reached out across millions of miles, examining every detail of Earth's surface and atmosphere. Data flowed across dozens of screens as the Zephyrians built a complete picture of human civilization. Cities, military bases, communication networks, power plants. Everything was mapped and categorized. But something was wrong. Senior technician Morgeth had been analyzing sensor data for 30 years. She had examined hundreds of worlds, from primitive farming planets to advanced technological societies. She knew what normal readings looked like. "These readings were not normal, Commander," Morgeth called out, her voice uncertain. "I'm detecting an anomaly." "What kind of anomaly?" Vexithara moved to the technician's station. The screen showed waves of energy flowing around Earth like invisible rivers. "There's an energy signature coming from the planet itself, not from any technology the humans have built. It's everywhere, Commander. Under the oceans, inside the mountains, even in the atmosphere. But our instruments can't identify what it is." Vexithara frowned. In all her years of conquest, she had never seen anything like this. The energy patterns seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, growing stronger and weaker in steady rhythm. "Could it be some kind of hidden weapon system?" she asked. "I don't think so, Commander. The energy isn't focused in any particular location. It's distributed across the entire planet, and it doesn't match any known technology in our databases." Other technicians began reporting similar findings. The energy signatures were not just on the surface. They extended deep into Earth's core and high into its atmosphere. Some readings even suggested the energy field reached beyond the planet's magnetic field into space itself. "Run a comparison with our records of other conquered worlds," Vexithara ordered. "See if any other planets showed similar energy patterns." The search took several minutes. When it finished, the results made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. No other planet in Zephyrian records showed anything even close to Earth's energy signature. Whatever was causing these readings was unique. "Commander, there's something else," reported Navigation Officer Vrelax. "Our long-range sensors are picking up interference whenever we try to scan beyond Earth's immediate space. It's almost like something is actively blocking our attempts to map the rest of the solar system." Vexithara felt a small chill run down her spine. The Zephyrian Empire had developed the most advanced sensor technology in the known galaxy. Their equipment could detect a single ship from 3 star systems away. Nothing should be able to block their scans. "Keep trying," she ordered. "Use all available power if necessary." The navigation officer worked for another hour, pushing the sensors to their maximum capability. The interference not only continued, but seemed to grow stronger the harder they tried to break through it. Finally, Vrelax gave up. "I'm sorry, Commander. Whatever is causing the interference is too powerful. We can scan Earth itself, but anything beyond that is blocked." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of machinery. Every Zephyrian present had participated in multiple conquests. They knew what easy targets looked like, and they knew what dangerous ones looked like. Earth was neither. It was something completely new. "Could the humans be more advanced than they appear?" asked Lieutenant Zachmore. "Maybe they're hiding their real technology somehow." Morgeth shook her head. I've analyzed their communications, their transportation systems, their power generation. They're exactly as primitive as they seem. Some of them still burn fossil fuels for energy. They fight wars with metal projectiles instead of energy weapons. There's no way they could create technology advanced enough to block our sensors. Then what is causing these anomalies? Vexithara demanded. No one had an answer. The commander stared at the image of Earth on the main screen. The planet looked so ordinary, so defenseless. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. Nothing about its appearance suggested it was anything special. But the sensor readings told a different story entirely. Run a historical analysis, she finally decided. Check if any of our exploration probes have visited this system before. Maybe there are older records that can explain what we're seeing. The search through historical databases took most of the day. When the results came back, they were even more puzzling. 3 different Zephyrian exploration missions had passed near Earth's solar system over the past 2 centuries. All 3 had noted unusual energy readings from the direction of Earth's sun, but none had investigated closely. More disturbing was what happened to those exploration ships afterward. The first had suffered complete engine failure just after leaving the solar system and had to be rescued by another vessel. The second had experienced navigation system malfunctions that left it lost in space for months. The third had reported strange dreams among the crew, dreams so vivid and disturbing that several crew members required psychological treatment. "Commander," Morgoth said quietly, "maybe we should request additional ships before beginning the conquest. These energy readings are unlike anything in our experience." Vexithara considered this option. Imperial doctrine required calling for reinforcements when facing unknown dangers. But she also knew that requesting help would be seen as weakness by her superiors. The Zephyrian Empire expected its commanders to show courage and determination, not caution. Continue monitoring the energy patterns, she decided. I want detailed analysis of any changes in intensity or frequency. We'll proceed with the standard conquest protocol, but we'll be extra careful. As the ship moved closer to Earth, the energy readings grew stronger. Whatever was causing them seemed to be responding to their presence like a sleeping giant slowly waking up. The thought made Vexithara uncomfortable, but she pushed the feeling aside. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered dozens of worlds. They had defeated species far more advanced than humans. They had weapons that could destroy entire planets if necessary. Whatever secrets Earth might be hiding, they would overcome them just as they had overcome every other obstacle. But deep in her mind, a small voice whispered that this time might be different. This time they might have found something that couldn't be conquered. The energy patterns pulsed stronger, and Earth waited below them like a blue and green mystery wrapped in invisible power. Admiral Korthak stood in the command center of the massive Zephyrian fleet. 50 warships hung in space around Earth like metal wolves surrounding their prey. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. The sight should have been enough to make any species surrender immediately. Open communication channels to all major population centers on the planet, Korthak ordered. His voice was deep and commanding, trained to inspire fear in enemies and confidence in his own troops. The communication officer worked quickly at his station. Within minutes, every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth was broadcasting the same message. Humans around the world stopped what they were doing and stared at their screens in shock. Korthak's image appeared on every device. He stood 7 feet tall, his golden armor gleaming with the symbols of imperial power. His face was stern and cold, showing no emotion except absolute authority. "People of Earth," he began, his voice automatically translated into every human language. "I am Admiral Korthak of the Zephyrian Empire. Your planet is now under imperial jurisdiction. You have 1 standard day to surrender your military forces and submit to imperial rule. Resistance will be met with complete destruction." The message was simple and direct. The same words had convinced dozens of other species to give up without a fight. Korthak expected the same response from humans: panic, confusion, and quick surrender by their leaders. But something unexpected happened instead. Around the world, humans began to organize. Not in panic, but with surprising calm and determination. Military leaders who had been enemies for decades suddenly began working together. Communication networks that had never cooperated before started sharing information freely. It was as if the entire species had instantly unified against the common threat. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Yeltar, We're receiving responses from multiple human governments. They're refusing to surrender. Korthak frowned. All of them? Yes, sir. Even the smaller nations that have no military capability to speak of. They're all saying the same thing, that Earth will never be conquered. This was unusual. Most species had at least some groups willing to collaborate with the Empire in exchange for better treatment. The promise of advanced technology and inclusion in galactic civilization was usually enough to create divisions among the population. But the humans seemed completely united in their refusal. Begin Phase 2, Korthak decided. Deploy landing forces to major cities. A show of our ground capabilities should change their minds quickly. The first wave of Zephyrian troops descended from orbit in sleek assault ships. They targeted New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, and a dozen other major cities. Each landing force was equipped with advanced energy weapons, personal shields, and powered armor that made them nearly invincible against human weapons. But the battles that followed were unlike anything in Zephyrian military. History. Sergeant Vorth led his squad through the streets of New York. His armor's sensors showed human defenders taking positions in buildings around them. This should have been easy. Human bullets couldn't penetrate Zephyrian shields, and human communication systems were primitive compared to Imperial technology. The first sign something was wrong came when Vorth's targeting system malfunctioned. Instead of showing exact locations of human soldiers, it displayed confused readings that seemed to shift and change randomly. His weapons, which should have been deadly accurate, began missing targets that were clearly visible. Squad leader, called one of his soldiers. My shield generator is acting strange. Power levels keep fluctuating. Vorth checked his own equipment. Everything seemed to be working, but not correctly. His communications with the command ship were filled with static. His motion sensors showed movement where nothing was visible. His weapons fired, but the energy beam seemed weaker than normal. The human defenders, meanwhile, fought like they had nothing to lose. They used tactics that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. They seemed to know exactly where Zephyrian forces would move before they moved. Their simple weapons somehow found the few weak points in advanced alien armor. Most disturbing of all, the humans themselves seemed different. They moved faster than they should have been able to. They showed no fear of superior technology. They fought with coordination that suggested they were sharing information instantly across entire continents. Admiral, reported Major Kexral from London, human resistance is much stronger than expected. Our weapons are experiencing frequent malfunctions, and their fighters seem to be anticipating our every move. Similar reports came in from Tokyo, Moscow, and every other battle site. Zephyrian forces trained to conquer any enemy found themselves struggling against humans with simple guns and basic military equipment. It made no sense. Korthak studied the battle reports in growing confusion. The humans should have been crushed within hours. Instead, they were holding their own against the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Sir, said Science Officer Meldari, I'm detecting the same energy anomalies that our reconnaissance team reported. They're much stronger now, and they seem to be centered on areas where human resistance is strongest. What kind of anomalies? It's hard to explain, Admiral. Our sensors are detecting energy patterns that don't match any known technology. The patterns seem to be affecting our equipment somehow, causing the malfunctions our troops are experiencing. Korthak felt a cold anger building in his chest. The Zephyrian Empire did not lose battles to primitive species. Their technology was superior. Their training was superior, their experience was superior. There had to be some explanation for what was happening. Deploy additional forces, he ordered. Double the size of our ground teams. Use heavy weapons if necessary. But doubling the number of troops only made things worse. As more Zephyrian soldiers landed on Earth, their equipment problems increased. Weapons that worked perfectly in space began failing on the planet's surface. Communication systems designed to function across entire star systems couldn't maintain clear signals between units just a few miles apart. The humans, meanwhile, seemed to grow stronger. Their military units began moving with impossible coordination. Supply lines that should have been easy targets were defended by soldiers who seemed to appear from nowhere. Human pilots in primitive aircraft somehow outmaneuvered Zephyrian fighters with technology centuries more advanced. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the battle for New York from her laboratory window. As a theoretical physicist, she had been studying unusual energy readings around Earth for years. But since the alien invasion began, Those readings had become impossible to ignore. Her instruments showed energy patterns flowing beneath the city like underground rivers. The patterns seemed to respond to the fighting, growing stronger whenever human forces were in danger. It was as if the planet itself was participating in the battle. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself, staring at her data. The energy readings were off every chart she had ever seen. Whatever was causing them was more powerful than nuclear reactors, but somehow completely stable and controlled. Elena began to formulate a theory that seemed crazy even to her scientific mind. What if Earth wasn't just the planet humans lived on? What if it was something much more than that? On the command ship, Admiral Korthak faced a situation no Imperial commander had ever encountered. His forces were not losing exactly, but they weren't winning either. The humans continued to resist with determination that bordered on the supernatural. "Admiral," reported his aide, "we're receiving communication requests from several human leaders. They want to negotiate." Finally, Korthak thought, bring their representatives aboard. But when the human delegates arrived, they didn't offer surrender. Instead, they delivered a message that left the Admiral speechless. "We appreciate your demonstration of power," said the lead negotiator, an elderly woman with calm eyes. "But you should understand that Earth is protected by something you cannot fight with weapons. We suggest you leave now before you discover just how protected we really are." Korthak laughed, but the sound was hollow. "You think your primitive planet can stand against the Zephyrian Empire?" The woman smiled sadly. "We think you don't understand what you're dealing with. This isn't just our home, Admiral. This is our partner, and it doesn't like uninvited guests." As she spoke, every instrument on the command ship began showing the same energy readings. The mysterious patterns were growing stronger by the hour, and they seemed to be spreading beyond Earth's surface into the space around the fleet itself. For the first time in his career, Admiral Korthak began to wonder if the Zephyrian Empire had finally encountered something it couldn't conquer. Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 3 days. Her laboratory was filled with printouts, computer screens showing energy readings, and empty coffee cups. The data she was seeing challenged everything she thought she knew about physics. "It's not possible," she muttered, staring at the latest measurements. "Energy doesn't behave this way." But the readings didn't lie. Since the Zephyrian invasion began, the mysterious energy patterns around Earth had grown stronger every hour. More importantly, they seemed to be responding to human thoughts and emotions. When people were afraid, the energy became chaotic. When they showed determination to fight, it became focused and powerful. Elena's colleague, Dr. James Chen, burst through the laboratory door without knocking. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, and his eyes were wide with excitement. "Elena, you have to see this," he said, waving a tablet computer. "I've been analyzing seismic data from around the world. Something incredible is happening." He showed her earthquake readings from the past week. Instead of random geological activity, the pattern showed something that looked almost like communication. Small tremors occurred in rhythmic patterns that resembled heartbeats or breathing. "The planet is responding to the invasion," James said. "Not just the energy patterns you've been studying, but the entire geological system. It's like Earth itself is waking up." Elena looked at the data more carefully. The seismic patterns weren't just random movements in the Earth's crust. They showed coordination between continents, as if different parts of the planet were sending messages to each other. "Look at this." She pointed to a section of the readings. "Every time Zephyrian forces land in a new location, we get these small earthquakes in a circular pattern around the landing site. It's as if the planet is marking where the invaders are. And here," James added, showing her another screen, "electromagnetic readings from the atmosphere. The planet's magnetic field is shifting in ways that shouldn't be possible. It's creating interference with alien communications while leaving human systems alone." Elena felt her understanding of reality shifting. As a scientist, she had always believed in explanations based on known physics. But this evidence suggested something far more extraordinary was happening. "James, what if Earth isn't just a planet with life on it? What if it is alive?" The idea sounded crazy when spoken aloud, but the evidence was overwhelming. The energy patterns, the seismic activity, the electromagnetic changes, they all pointed to a single intelligence coordinating Earth's response to the invasion. Meanwhile, on the surface, the war between humans and Zephyrians was taking an even stranger turn. Captain Sarah Mitchell led her unit through the ruins of downtown Chicago. The Zephyrian landing force had destroyed several buildings, but instead of weakening human resolve, the destruction seemed to make them fight harder. More importantly, it made them fight better. "Captain," called Sergeant Rodriguez from behind an overturned car, "my rifle is working differently. It's more accurate than it should be, and I'm not missing any shots." Sarah checked her own weapon. The standard military rifle felt different in her hands, lighter but more powerful. When she aimed at a Zephyrian soldier across the street, the weapon seemed to guide itself to the target. The shot hit exactly where she intended, penetrating alien armor that should have been invulnerable. "Ma'am," said Private Johnson, "I'm getting information in my head. I know where the aliens are going to move before they move there." Sarah felt it too, a strange awareness that extended beyond her normal senses. She could sense her soldiers' positions without seeing them. She knew which buildings were safe and which were dangerous. Most unsettling of all, she could feel the presence of something vast and protective surrounding them. The Zephyrian forces were experiencing the opposite effect. Their advanced weapons continued to malfunction at critical moments. Their sensors showed false readings that led them into ambushes. Their communications were filled with static that seemed to carry whispered messages in languages they didn't understand. Commander Vexithara, now leading ground forces after their ships couldn't provide adequate orbital support, found herself trapped in a war that made no sense. Her troops were the best in the Empire, equipped with technology that should have made victory inevitable. Instead, they were being outfought by humans using simple weapons and basic tactics. "Commander," reported her lieutenant, "our energy readings are showing massive spikes all around the city. It's like the planet is generating power and directing it toward human forces." "That's impossible," Vexthara replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Too many impossible things had been happening since they arrived at Earth. As if responding to her doubt, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. Not an earthquake, but something more purposeful. The vibrations formed a pattern that felt almost like communication, as if the planet itself was trying to tell them something. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission on emergency frequencies," called the communications officer. "It's coming from Dr. Elena Vasquez, one of the human scientists." "Put her through." Elena's face appeared on their portable display screen. She looked tired but determined, and behind her they could see laboratory equipment displaying the same energy readings the Zephyrians were detecting. "Commander Vexithara," Elena began, "I need to explain something to you. You're not fighting just humans. You're fighting Earth itself." "Explain," Vexithara demanded. "Your species has conquered dozens of worlds," Elena continued, "but those were normal planets with life on them. Earth is different. For billions of years, life and the planet have been growing together, becoming something more than just a world with creatures living on it. We didn't just evolve here. We evolved with Earth as our partner." Elena pulled up displays showing the energy patterns. "These readings your sensors are detecting, they're Earth's consciousness. It's been sleeping for most of human history, but your invasion woke it up. Now it's protecting us." Vexithara studied the human scientist's face, looking for signs of deception. But Elena seemed to believe every word she was saying, and the evidence around them supported her impossible claims. "You're saying your planet is alive?" "More than alive," Elena replied. "It's aware, intelligent, and very protective of the life forms it helped create. Your weapons fail because Earth is interfering with their operation. Your communications are blocked because Earth doesn't want you coordinating your attacks. Your soldiers are confused because Earth is affecting their perceptions." As Elena spoke, the energy readings on both human and Zephyrian instruments grew stronger. The air itself seemed to hum with invisible power. Trees in nearby parks began to grow at visible speeds, as if the planet was demonstrating its control over life itself. "This is why no other world in your databases showed similar energy patterns," Elena explained. "Earth isn't just rare, it's unique. We're not just humans living on a planet. We're part of something larger, something that won't let us be conquered." The ground vibrations intensified, and now they clearly formed patterns. To human ears, they sounded like a slow, deep voice saying words of comfort and protection. To Zephyrian senses, they carried a message of warning and growing anger. Captain Mitchell felt the change immediately. The strange awareness she had been experiencing became stronger and clearer. She could sense every member of her unit, every civilian in the area, every alien soldier within miles. More than that, She could feel Earth's presence like a vast, protective parent watching over its children. All units, she radioed to other human forces. Something big is about to happen. Stay calm and trust the planet. Commander Vexithera felt it too, but from the opposite perspective. The presence she sensed was not protective but warning. It was vast beyond comprehension, older than her species and growing more awake with each passing moment. For the first time in her military career, she felt genuinely afraid. All Zephyrian forces, she transmitted to her troops. Prepare for unknown phenomenon. We may need to withdraw to orbit. But even as she spoke, she wondered if orbit would be far enough away. The energy patterns were extending beyond Earth's atmosphere, reaching toward the Zephyrian fleet like invisible hands. Whatever they had awakened, it was much larger than just the planet's surface. Elena Vasquez watched her instruments with growing amazement. The energy levels were approaching levels that should have torn the planet apart, but instead everything seemed perfectly controlled and stable. Earth was demonstrating power beyond human, understanding while keeping its human partners completely safe. The awakening is almost complete, she whispered to James. We're about to see what Earth can really do. Admiral Korthak stared at the tactical display in growing desperation. 3 days of ground combat had achieved nothing except equipment failures and confused troops. The humans continued to fight with impossible effectiveness. While his forces seemed to get weaker every hour, they remained on the planet's surface. Sir, reported his weapons officer, High Command is demanding an immediate resolution. They're threatening to relieve you of command if the planet isn't secured within 24 hours. Korthak felt his jaw clench. The Zephyrian Empire did not tolerate failure, especially from experienced commanders. But how could he explain that they weren't fighting a normal species on a normal planet? How could he tell his superiors that Earth itself seemed to be fighting back? Deploy the planetary bombardment arrays, he decided. If we can't take the planet intact, we'll break their will to resist by destroying their major cities. It was a desperate decision. Planetary bombardment was usually reserved for worlds that had no value except as examples to other species. But Korthak saw no other choice. The humans had to be shown that resistance was hopeless. The massive weapons on his flagship began charging with energy that could level mountains. Similar weapons on a dozen other ships prepared to turn Earth's surface into burning wasteland. It should have been enough firepower to end any resistance immediately. But as the weapons reached full charge, something unexpected happened. Admiral, shouted the sensor operator, we're detecting massive energy spikes across the entire planet. Power levels are beyond anything in our databases. On the main screen, Earth seemed to pulse with invisible light. The energy patterns that Dr. Vasquez had been studying were no longer subtle readings on sensitive instruments. They were visible to the naked eye as waves of force that made the space around the planet shimmer like water. Fire all weapons, Korthak ordered, before whatever they're doing reaches completion. The Zephyrian fleet unleashed enough destruction to crack a planet's crust. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down toward Earth's major cities, each one carrying the power of 100 nuclear weapons. The attack should have ended the war in seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams struck an invisible barrier 50 miles above Earth's surface and simply disappeared. Not reflected, not absorbed, they vanished as if they had never existed. The barrier rippled like water where the weapons hit it, but showed no sign of damage or stress. What is that? Korthak demanded. Unknown, sir, replied the science officer. Our sensors can't penetrate it. It's like the planet has surrounded itself with some kind of energy field that nullifies our weapons. But Earth wasn't finished defending itself. As the Zephyrian fleet prepared to fire again, the planet began its counterattack. Dr. Elena Vasquez felt the change before her instruments registered it. The vast presence she had sensed around Earth was no longer just protective. It was angry. Something that had spent billions of years nurturing life was faced with creatures trying to destroy that life, and it would not tolerate the threat. James, she called to her colleague, get away from the windows. Something big is about to happen. The earthquake that followed wasn't random geological activity. It was precise, controlled, and targeted. While the ground shook violently under Zephyrian forces, human-controlled areas remained perfectly stable. Buildings that housed alien troops cracked and collapsed, while human structures stood untouched even when they were just across the street. But the earthquake was just the beginning. In space, the Zephyrian fleet suddenly found itself facing phenomena that violated every law of physics they understood. Gravitational fields appeared from nowhere, pulling ships out of formation and toward each other. Solar radiation that should have taken 8 minutes to travel from the sun struck their vessels in focused beams that overloaded their shields in seconds. "Admiral," reported the navigation officer, "we're being pulled toward the planet by some kind of gravitational anomaly. Our engines can't compensate." Korthak watched in horror as his massive flagship was drawn downward like a falling stone. Around him, other ships in the fleet were experiencing similar problems. Some were being pulled toward Earth, others were being pushed away from the sun, and a few seemed to be caught in gravitational fields that spun them like children's toys. "How is this possible?" he demanded. The science officer was working frantically at his station, trying to understand what was happening. "Sir, the gravitational fields are originating from the planet itself. It's as if Earth has learned to manipulate space-time around it. Our sensors show gravitational anomalies extending throughout the entire solar system. On Earth's surface, the effects were even more dramatic. Zephyrian ground forces found themselves fighting not just humans but the planet itself. The ground opened beneath their feet at precisely the right moments to swallow their vehicles. Trees grew at impossible speeds to block their movements and tangle their equipment. The weather changed from clear skies to violent storms in seconds, but only over areas occupied by alien troops. Captain Sarah Mitchell watched in amazement as her unit advanced through Chicago without encountering any resistance. Every Zephyrian position they approached had been abandoned after the aliens were forced to retreat by environmental conditions that seemed to target them specifically. "Captain," reported Sergeant Rodriguez, "I've never seen anything like this. The aliens' equipment works fine until they try to use it against us, then it fails. But our weapons are working better than ever." Sarah felt the truth of that statement. Her rifle now had perfect accuracy at ranges that should have been impossible. Her tactical awareness extended for miles in every direction. Most importantly, she could sense Earth's presence supporting her and her soldiers with power they didn't fully understand, but could clearly feel. The phenomenon wasn't limited to Earth itself. Throughout the solar system, the Zephyrian fleet was discovering that space around Earth followed different rules than space anywhere else they had traveled. Commander Vexithara, now trapped on Earth's surface with her ground forces, watched her orbital support disappear as ship after ship was forced to retreat from the planet's influence. Some were pulled into decaying orbits that would eventually crash them into Earth's surface. Others were pushed away by gravitational forces that seemed to originate from empty space. "Commander," her lieutenant reported, "we've lost contact with the fleet. All our orbital assets have been forced to withdraw beyond the moon's orbit." "How many ships did we lose?" 12 destroyed by gravitational stress, 8 severely damaged, and the rest forced to retreat. Admiral Korthak's flagship is somewhere on the dark side of the moon, trying to repair systems that were overloaded by solar radiation bursts. Vexithara felt a cold certainty settling in her stomach. The Zephyrian Empire's most powerful battle fleet had been defeated, not by superior technology or better tactics, but by a planet that fought back using the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Back in her laboratory, Elena Vasquez was documenting phenomena that would revolutionize human understanding of physics, if anyone lived long enough to study them. Earth was demonstrating abilities that suggested consciousness could directly manipulate matter and energy on a planetary scale. "Look at this." She showed James the latest readings. "Earth is using gravitational lensing to focus solar radiation into precise beams. It's creating localized space-time distortions to move objects that should be immovable. It's even affecting the magnetic fields of other planets in the solar system." "How is it possible?" James asked. "I think we've been looking at it wrong," Elena replied. "We assumed consciousness was something that happened inside brains, something separate from the physical world. But what if consciousness and matter are more connected than we thought? What if sufficiently complex systems can develop awareness that allows them to influence physical laws directly?" The evidence was overwhelming. Earth wasn't just a planet that happened to support life. It was a living entity with the power to protect itself and its inhabitants using forces that other species had never encountered. In orbit around the moon, Admiral Korthak finally managed to re-establish communications with his scattered fleet. The reports he received made it clear that the Zephyrian Empire had encountered something completely beyond their experience. "Sir," reported his aide, "we've received word from High Command. They're deploying the Stellar Devastator to this system. Korthak felt his blood turn cold. The Stellar Devastator was the Empire's ultimate weapon, a ship capable of causing stars to go supernova. It was used only when a species or planet posed an existential threat to Imperial expansion. They're going to destroy the entire solar system. Yes, sir. If Earth can't be conquered, it will be eliminated along with everything else in this system. But as Korthak stared at the blue and green planet below, he wondered if even the Empire's most powerful weapon would be enough. Earth had already demonstrated power that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. The real war was just beginning, and for the first time in Zephyrian history, the outcome was far from certain. The Stellar Devastator emerged from hyperspace like a dark omen against the stars. 20 miles long and armed with weapons that could shatter planets, it represented the ultimate expression of Zephyrian military power. Admiral Korthak felt a mixture of relief and shame as he watched the massive ship take position near Jupiter. "Admiral Korthak," came the cold voice of Supreme Commander Malthar over the communication system. "Your failure to secure this primitive world has forced the Empire to take extreme measures. We will demonstrate to the galaxy what happens when any species refuses Imperial rule." Korthak wanted to explain that Earth wasn't primitive, that they were dealing with something completely unprecedented. But he knew Malthar wouldn't listen. The Supreme Commander had built his reputation on absolute ruthlessness and complete victory. "Sir," Korthak tried anyway, "the planet has demonstrated unusual defensive capabilities. Perhaps we should study." "Enough," Malthar cut him off. "No planet has ever resisted the Empire's full might. If Earth has unusual defenses, they will mean nothing against stellar devastation. Prepare to witness the end of this system." But Earth was already aware of the new threat. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched her instruments register energy patterns unlike anything she had seen before. The planetary consciousness that had been protecting humanity was now preparing for something that required power beyond imagination. "James," she called to her colleague, "look at these readings. Energy levels are climbing toward impossible levels, but they're not chaotic. Everything is perfectly controlled and focused." "Focused on what?" James asked, studying the data. "I think Earth is preparing to defend the entire solar system," Elena said quietly. "Not just itself, but everything, the moon, Mars, the outer planets. It's like Earth considers the whole system to be part of itself." The truth was even more extraordinary than Elena realized. Earth's consciousness had indeed extended throughout the solar system during the billions of years of its development. The gravitational forces that held planets in orbit, the solar radiation that provided energy for life, the cosmic dust that formed new worlds, all of it was connected in ways that most species never discovered. Captain Sarah Mitchell and her unit were among the humans who felt the change most directly. The awareness that had been growing stronger since the invasion began now expanded beyond Earth's atmosphere. She could sense the positions of every ship in the Zephyrian fleet, feel the massive presence of the Stellar Devastator preparing its terrible weapon, and understand with absolute certainty that Earth would not allow its system to be destroyed. "All units," she transmitted to human forces around the world, "something incredible is about to happen. Earth is going to show these invaders what it means to threaten our home." Commander Vex Thera, still trapped on Earth's surface with her surviving ground forces, felt the planetary consciousness focus its attention on the approaching threat. The sensation was overwhelming, like standing in the presence of something vast and ancient that had decided it would no longer tolerate threats to its existence. "Commander," her lieutenant reported, "our remaining orbital sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the entire solar system. It's not just Earth, every planet, every moon, even the asteroid belt is showing unusual activity." On the Stellar Devastator, Supreme Commander Malthar was growing impatient. The ship's main weapon required several hours to charge fully, but he wanted to see fear in the humans before their destruction. He ordered his communications officer to broadcast a final ultimatum to Earth. "People of Earth," his voice reached every human device on the planet, "you have witnessed the futility of resistance. In 1 hour, this star system will cease to exist. Your planet, your moon, everything you have ever known will be reduced to cosmic dust. This is the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire." The response came not from human leaders, but from Earth itself. Every Zephyrian instrument in the solar system suddenly registered the same phenomenon. Space-time was warping around Earth in patterns that created a communication signal powerful, enough to reach across interstellar distances. The message was simple and clear, transmitted in mathematical concepts that any technological species could understand. This system is protected. Leave now or face consequences beyond your understanding. Malthar laughed at the transmission. Impressive technology for such a primitive world. But no amount of spatial distortion can stop a stellar devastator. Begin final charging sequence. That was when Earth revealed the true extent of its power. The sun, which had been burning steadily for billions of years, suddenly began to pulse with controlled energy. Solar flares erupted from its surface with perfect precision, reaching across space to strike Zephyrian ships with devastating accuracy. But these were not random stellar phenomena. They were directed weapons controlled by the same consciousness that had been protecting Earth. The stellar devastator, designed to cause stars to explode, found itself the target of stellar fury instead. Focused solar radiation struck its shields with enough force to overload systems that had been built to withstand planetary explosions. The massive ship staggered under the assault, its hull beginning to glow with absorbed energy. Impossible, Malthar shouted over alarms and sparking control panels. Stars don't behave this way. They can't be controlled by planetary consciousness. But the evidence was overwhelming. Earth had not just awakened as a planetary intelligence, it had revealed its connection to the entire solar system. The sun, the planets, the gravitational fields that held everything together, even the cosmic radiation that filled space. All of it was part of a vast network of consciousness that had Earth at its center. Elena Vasquez stared at her instruments in amazement as she finally understood the complete truth. James, we got it wrong. Earth didn't just develop consciousness alongside life. Earth is consciousness expressed through matter on a scale we never imagined. The entire solar system is one vast thinking entity, and we're part of it. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just evolved on Earth. They had evolved as Earth's way of developing self-awareness and communication with the rest of the galaxy. Every human thought, every discovery, every achievement was part of the planetary consciousness exploring its own potential. Captain Mitchell felt this connection directly as her awareness expanded beyond anything she had thought possible. She could sense not just her fellow humans, but every form of life on the planet, every particle of matter in the solar system, even the thoughts and intentions of the Zephyrian invaders. We're not just fighting for our home, she radioed to all human forces. We are our home, and our home is fighting for us. The battle in space reached levels of intensity that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. The stellar devastator, even while under direct attack from the sun itself, continued charging its planet-killing weapon. But Earth was preparing a defense that would demonstrate once and for all why this system was untouchable. As the devastator's weapon reached critical charge, Earth acted with the full power of a solar system-wide consciousness. Gravitational fields throughout the system suddenly shifted, creating a network of space-time distortions that redirected the weapon's destructive energy away from the sun and back toward the ship that had fired it. The stellar devastator, struck by its own ultimate weapon, lasted exactly 3 seconds before being torn apart by forces it had been designed to create, not withstand. Supreme Commander Malthar's final transmission was a mixture of fear and disbelief. What are you? The answer came not in words, but in a demonstration that reached beyond the solar system. Earth extended its consciousness through space-time itself, touching every Zephyrian world, every Imperial ship, every alien mind throughout their vast empire. The message was clear and absolute. We are Earth. We are humanity. We are one. This system and all who live in harmony with it are under our protection. Any who threaten us threaten something greater than you can comprehend. Choose peace, or face a universe where the very stars themselves oppose you. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian leaders felt the touch of a consciousness vast beyond their understanding. Planets they had conquered decades ago suddenly registered the same energy signatures that had appeared around Earth. Space around their homeworld began showing gravitational anomalies that suggested their own star might not be as stable as they had always believed on Earth. Commander Vexithara found herself face-to-face with Captain Mitchell in the ruins of Chicago. But instead of enemies meeting in battle, they stood as representatives of two very different ways of understanding the universe. Your empire thought consciousness was limited to individual minds, Sarah said. her voice carrying authority that came from connection to something far larger than herself. You never discovered that awareness can emerge from any sufficiently complex system. Planetary systems, solar systems, maybe even galactic systems. Vexithara looked around at the human soldiers surrounding her. They moved with perfect coordination, shared awareness flowing between them like water. Their technology worked beyond its design specifications because it was supported by planetary consciousness. Their tactics were flawless because they were guided by intelligence that encompassed their entire world. "What happens to us now?" she asked quietly.